Silence can be more deafening than words. When someone ignores you, it is not the absence of their voice that stings the most but the flood of emotions it triggers within you: confusion, sadness, anger, or even desperation. The mind, which is ever eager to find meaning, begins to spin stories. Did I do something wrong? Do they not care? Should I try harder? In moments like these, the heart wrestles between pride and longing. You may be tempted to act, to force acknowledgement, to demand answers. But in doing so, you may unknowingly commit 3 mistakes that push people further away while draining your own inner peace. In Zen and Buddhist philosophy, attachment is often seen as the root of suffering. The more you cling to the desire for recognition, the more you suffer when it is withheld. The mind, enslaved by craving, becomes blind to wisdom. As the Buddha once said, holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. Ignoring is not always an act of hostility. Sometimes, it is indifference. Sometimes, it is a lesson. Sometimes, it is protection. Whatever the reason, the way you respond defines your own inner peace. Let me tell you a story. A story about a seeker who fell into the trap of 3 mistakes when he was ignored, and how wisdom revealed the path to freedom. The story of the seeker and the 3 mistakes. A young seeker once lived in a quiet monastery, learning the ways of meditation and mindfulness under the guidance of a wise teacher. He was diligent in practice, sincere in devotion, and yet, he struggled with one thing: acceptance. He had a friend, a fellow disciple, with whom he had shared deep conversations and companionship. But one day, without warning, the friend stopped speaking to him. He no longer responded to greetings, no longer met his eyes. The young seeker felt a sudden emptiness, as if a door had been shut in his heart. Confused and hurt, he approached his teacher. "Why has he stopped speaking to me?" the seeker asked. "What have I done wrong?" The teacher, who had seen the restlessness in the seeker's heart, smiled gently and said, "When the wind changes direction, does the river protest? When the leaves fall in autumn, does the tree demand them to return? The river flows, the tree remains still. Learn from them." But the young seeker, caught in his own emotions, could not understand these words yet. And so, he fell into the 3 mistakes that many do when ignored. 1. Chasing the ignorer. At first, the seeker believed that if he could just make his friend notice him again, everything would be fine. So he started trying, leaving messages, calling out his friend's name in the halls. Finding excuses to be near him, one day, he saw his friend walking alone near the river. Excited, he hurried over and said, "I don't know why you are ignoring me, but let's talk." His friend only nodded politely and walked away. That night, the seeker felt a deep ache in his heart. Why does he still not acknowledge me? He felt as if his efforts were wasted, as if he had lost something important. His teacher observed his distress and said, "A flower does not chase the bee, and yet the bee comes to it. A river does not beg the fish to stay, and yet the fish swim within it. Why, then, do you chase?" It was then that the seeker realized that chasing someone who ignores you is like pouring water into a broken pot. It never fills. The more he ran after recognition, the more desperate he appeared, and the more distant his friend became, and so, he let go of the chase. 2. Begging for answers. But still, the seeker was restless. He thought, if I cannot make him talk to me, at least I deserve to know why, and so, one evening, he confronted his friend. "Tell me," he said, "what have I done? Why have you turned away from me?" His friend looked at him with calm eyes and simply replied, "Does it matter? The word struck him like a wave crashing on rocks. Does it matter? He wanted to say, of course, it matters. But something in those words made him pause. That night, he sat in meditation, troubled by the thought. His teacher saw his furrowed brow and asked, "What troubles you?" "I just want to know why he ignores me," the seeker confessed. The teacher nodded and placed a small candle before him. "If this flame flickers, must you know which wind moved it? If a cloud drifts away, must you ask it why? When someone's heart turns away, must you seek an explanation?" And the seeker realized, demanding an answer does not bring peace. Sometimes, people leave not because of something you did, but because of something within themselves, and so, he let go of the need for answers. 3. Taking it personally. Days passed, and though the seeker no longer chased nor demanded answers, he still felt pain. He took his friend's silence as proof that he was unworthy, unimportant. One evening, as he sat alone by the river, his teacher joined him. "Do you know," the teacher said, "that sometimes, people ignore you not because they dislike you, but because they are lost in their own struggles?" The seeker frowned. "But if he valued me, wouldn't he still acknowledge me?" The teacher picked up a smooth stone and tossed it into the water. The ripples spread outward. "Tell me," he said, "if the moon does not appear in the river, is it because the river is unworthy, or because the clouds have covered the sky?" The seeker's heart trembled with understanding. Perhaps my friend's silence is not a reflection of me, but of his own inner storm. That night, he released the burden from his heart, letting go of the need for recognition. Days turned into weeks, and though the friend never spoke to him again, the seeker felt a deep peace within himself. He no longer chased, begged, or took things personally. He simply lived, as the river flows, as the tree stands still. One morning, as he was sweeping the courtyard, his teacher approached him and said, "Do you still feel pain?" The seeker smiled. "No. Because I have learned that being ignored is not suffering, attachment to being noticed is." The teacher placed a hand on his shoulder. "Now, you have understood the power of non-attachment. When we are ignored, the first battle is not with the other person, it is with our own mind. The mind craves validation, recognition, and certainty. It tells us that if someone does not respond to us, it must mean we are not important, not worthy, or have done something wrong. But is this truly the case? A Zen proverb states, "Do not seek water in a mirage, seek it where the river flows." Many of us, in moments of rejection, seek peace in the wrong places. We think that if the person who ignores us would just acknowledge us, our suffering would end. But this is an illusion. True peace does not come from being accepted by others, it comes from accepting ourselves. Understanding why people ignore others. To free yourself from suffering, you must understand the nature of why people ignore others. 1. They may be struggling internally. Sometimes, people withdraw not because they dislike you, but because they are dealing with their own internal struggles. They may be overwhelmed by stress, emotions, or personal conflicts. Their silence is not a reflection of your worth, but of their own battles. 2. They may be testing your response. Some people withdraw to see if you will chase them, to test how much they mean to you. But true relationships are not built on games of pursuit, they are built on mutual understanding. The moment you stop reacting and let go, the dynamic changes. 3. They may have moved on. In life, people drift apart. Relationships change, and not everyone remains in our lives forever. Clinging to a past connection only creates suffering. Letting go allows new experiences, new people, and new wisdom to enter. When you accept these truths, you begin to detach from the illusion that being ignored is an attack on your self-worth, shifting your focus from external validation to inner strength. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises from attachment. If you are suffering because someone ignores you, it is not their silence that causes pain, it is your attachment to their recognition. The great Zen master Dogen once said, "If you see the Buddha on the road, kill him." This shocking statement does not mean to literally harm the Buddha, but to destroy the illusion of seeking enlightenment outside yourself. Likewise, if you find yourself seeking validation from others, let go of that illusion. You do not need anyone to validate your existence. Instead of seeking external recognition, cultivate 1. Self-awareness. Observe your emotions without reacting. Why does being ignored disturb you? What fear or insecurity does it awaken? 2. Detachment. Let go of the need to control how others treat you. Freedom comes when you stop trying to force recognition. 3. Self-sufficiency. Find peace in your own presence. If someone ignores you, let it be. Turn inward, strengthen your mind, and continue on your path. The true power lies in stillness. The greatest response to being ignored is silence, not out of pride, but out of wisdom. The moment you stop reacting, you reclaim your power. Imagine yourself as a mountain. The winds may come, storms may rage, people may walk away, but the mountain remains unmoved. This is the essence of true strength, so the next time someone ignores you, do not chase, do not beg, and do not take it personally. Simply breathe, let go, and continue your journey. In your stillness, you will find a power far greater than recognition, the power of inner peace. Thanks for watching. Hope enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Just click the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you'd like to see next. See you in the next video. Imagine a person standing in front of a mirror, yelling at their own reflection. They point fingers, scold, and become furious. But the mirror does not respond. It does not get angry. It does not fight back. It simply reflects. Now, imagine another person standing in a still pond, throwing stones into the water. The ripples form and distort the reflection, but only for a moment. Soon, the surface returns to its natural calm. In life, we often behave like the first person. We allow others to dictate our emotions. We let anger control us. We react to insults, betrayals, and unfairness as if we must fight against them. But a truly free mind behaves like the mirror or the pond. It remains untouched. Buddhist philosophy teaches that anger is not something others cause, it is something we create within ourselves. No one can enter your mind and press a button to make you angry. They can only present words and actions. Your reaction is your own creation. So how does one become like the mirror or the pond? How does one reach a state where no insult, betrayal, or injustice can shake their inner peace? This story will answer that question through Zen wisdom and deep philosophical insights. The Master and the Unshakable Mind. There was once a Zen master known for his unwavering calm. No matter what people did or said, he never got angry. Whether he was praised or insulted, whether people admired or hated him, his expression remained the same, peaceful, undisturbed. His students, however, struggled. They often became frustrated with one another, sometimes even arguing among themselves. They admired their master's unshakable nature and wished to learn his secret. One day, a young student approached him and asked, "Master, how is it that you never get angry? How can you remain unbothered by others?" The master smiled and said, "Tomorrow, I will teach you." The next morning, the student arrived early, eager for the lesson. The master handed him a bowl filled with water. "Hold this carefully," he instructed. The student held the bowl as the master took a wooden stick and struck the water's surface. The student flinched as water splashed over the edge. "Why did the water spill?" the master asked. "Because you struck it," the student replied. The master shook his head. "No, the water spilled because the bowl was full." The student frowned in confusion. The master continued, "If the bowl had been empty, no water would have spilled." In the same way, when people provoke you, if your mind is full of emotions, pride, ego, insecurity, you will spill anger. But if your mind is empty, nothing will be disturbed. The student nodded, beginning to understand. But there was more to learn. The art of emptying the mind. That evening, the master took the student to a quiet place and sat with him under the stars. "What is anger?" he asked. The student thought for a moment. "It is a strong emotion, a reaction to something we don't like." The master nodded. "Good. But where does it come from? Does it fall from the sky? Does it rise from the earth?" The student hesitated. "It comes from inside us." "Exactly." The master picked up a small rock and tossed it into a pond. The water rippled. Imagine someone insults you. Where does the disturbance happen? In their mouth, or in your mind? In my mind. Then the problem is not their words, but your reaction. The student took a deep breath, understanding more deeply. The master continued, "To never be angry or bothered by anyone, you must learn 3 things. Stop owning their words." The next day, the master sent his student to the marketplace with a simple instruction: walk through the market, and if anyone insults you, come back and tell me. The student did as instructed. He walked through the crowded market, and sure enough, a man shouted at him, "You fool! You walk like an idiot." At first, the student felt anger rise in his chest, but then he remembered his master's teaching. He took a deep breath and continued walking. When he returned, the master asked, "Did anyone insult you?" "Yes, a man called me a fool." The master laughed. "Tell me, did his words enter your mind, or did you leave them with him?" The student paused, thinking. "At first, I accepted them, but then I let them go." The master smiled. "Good. Words are like gifts. If someone hands you a rotten fruit, and you refuse to take it, who still has it? The one who offered it." "Exactly. If you do not take their insult, it remains with them, not you. The fire dies when you stop feeding it." The master then took the student to a bonfire. The flames roared as wood burned. "Throw some more wood into the fire," he instructed. The student did, and the fire grew larger. "Now stop feeding it." The student stopped. Slowly, the fire began to die down. "This is anger," the master explained. "When someone provokes you, they are handing you wood. If you grab it and throw it into the fire, it grows. But if you refuse, the fire dies on its own." The student nodded in understanding. "Become the ocean, not the cup." The master then led the student to the ocean. They stood at the shore as waves crashed. The master held up a small cup and filled it with seawater. "If I put a spoonful of salt in this cup, will it taste salty?" The student nodded, then the master threw a handful of salt into the ocean. And now? The student laughed. The ocean is so vast, it does not change. The master smiled. Exactly. A small mind reacts to every little disturbance. A vast mind, like the ocean, absorbs everything without losing its peace. Expand your mind, and no insult, betrayal, or injustice will disturb you. The student's final test. One day, a rude man visited the temple and insulted the master. He shouted, "You are a fraud. Your teachings are useless." The students watched, expecting their master to respond. But he simply smiled and said, "Thank you for your opinion." Then he continued with his day. Later, the student asked, "Master, why did you not defend yourself?" The master replied, "If a stranger handed you a bag of garbage, would you take it?" "No, then why would I take his words?" The student bowed, finally understanding. He had learned how to never get angry or bothered by anyone. The unshaken mind is true freedom. When we reflect upon the teachings of the Zen master, we begin to see that anger is not an external force but an internal choice. People often believe that anger is something inflicted upon them, but in truth, it is something they create within themselves. Why do we get angry? If we observe carefully, anger arises when, 1. Our ego is threatened. Someone insults us, and we feel the need to defend ourselves. But why? Because we believe our self-image is real and must be protected. 2. Our expectations are broken. We expect respect, fairness, or gratitude, but when reality does not meet these expectations, frustration builds. 3. We take ownership of negativity. Someone throws words at us, and instead of letting them fall away, we catch them and hold them close. But here's the question: what if we stopped believing in these illusions? What if we recognized that no one can force us to feel anything? Anger is a fire that burns the one who holds it. Imagine holding a burning coal in your hand, intending to throw it at someone. Who gets burned first? This is the nature of anger. It harms us more than it harms others. The Zen master did not get angry because he understood this. He knew that if he accepted the poison of insults, he would be the one suffering, not the one who delivered them. The 3 shields against anger. If you want to never get angry or bothered by anyone, you must build 3 shields of the mind. 1. Detachment from words. Words only have power if you give them meaning. If someone calls you a fool, and you do not believe it, their words are like an arrow shot into the sky. It falls harmlessly to the ground. 2. Non-reactivity. When people provoke you, they are testing your patience. But if you refuse to react, their power dissolves. The fire only burns if you feed it. 3. Expansiveness of mind. When your mind is small, every little disturbance feels like an earthquake. When your mind is vast, even great insults feel insignificant. Become like the ocean, and the small waves of insults will never shake you. Practical ways to apply this wisdom. Zen is not just philosophy, it is a way of living. If you truly want to cultivate an unshakable mind, practice these methods. Pause before reacting. When you feel anger rising, take a breath and ask yourself, do I want to feed this fire? Smile at insults. The next time someone tries to provoke you, simply smile and say, thank you for your opinion. See through illusions. Ask yourself, who is truly suffering when I get angry? Recognizing this truth will dissolve the need for reaction. Meditate daily. The more stillness you create in yourself, the less the outside world will shake you. No one can make you angry without your permission. No person, no situation, no event has the power to disturb your inner peace unless you allow it. If you master your own mind, you master the world, so, let others do as they will. Let the world move as it does. Be the mirror, reflecting but not reacting. Be the pond, allowing ripples but never holding on to them. Be the ocean, vast and undisturbed, and in this way, you will discover true freedom. Thanks for watching. Hope enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Just click the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you'd like to see next. See you in the next video. Have you ever found yourself wondering how to deal with someone who seems to drain your energy, someone whose every action is centered on their own needs and desires, leaving you feeling powerless? Can we create a boundary without ever uttering a single word? The teachings of Gautama Buddha provide us with profound wisdom for such challenges. As he once said, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Through the power of silence, presence, and mindfulness, we can assert our inner peace and protect ourselves from those who seek to manipulate us. Once upon a time, there was a serene mountain forest, where a monastery sat nestled between towering trees and a clear, flowing river. Among the monks who lived there, one was known for his deep wisdom, humility, and calm demeanor. He had mastered the art of silence, not just the silence of speech but the silence of the heart and mind. His silence was not a weakness, it was a shield, a way of setting boundaries against negativity, including those who sought to manipulate and control others. One day, a traveler came to the monastery. The traveler was well-dressed, confident, and radiated an air of superiority. He introduced himself to the monk and declared, "I have heard of your wisdom, and I have come here to learn from you. But I must say, I am already quite knowledgeable, and I have little time for foolishness. Teach me something worthwhile, and perhaps, I can help you improve your ways." The monk smiled kindly but said nothing. He gestured for the traveler to sit and poured him a cup of tea. As the tea overflowed from the cup, spilling onto the table, the traveler became irritated and said, "What are you doing? Can't you see the cup is full?" The monk replied softly, "Just as this cup is full, so too is your mind. It must be emptied before it can receive anything new." The traveler scoffed but decided to stay, intrigued by the monk's calmness. Days passed, and the traveler, with his arrogant nature, began trying to control the monks, demanding that they cater to his whims and serve him. He would interrupt their meditation, boast about his achievements, and belittle anyone who didn't comply with his wishes. His words were like sharp arrows, aiming to provoke a response, but no one responded. The monks, following their training, remained silent, attending to their duties without giving the traveler the reaction he sought. They never argued, never defended themselves, and never complied with his unreasonable demands. The traveler became increasingly frustrated. One morning, the traveler approached the wise monk again, his voice dripping with arrogance. "Why do none of you speak back to me? Am I not important enough to command your attention?" The monk looked at him with eyes filled with compassion and replied, "You see, not everything requires words. When you are in the presence of truth, the truth speaks for itself." The traveler, irritated by the cryptic answer, stormed off. But as the days went by, he couldn't help but notice something peculiar. Despite his attempts to assert dominance, no one seemed affected by him. The monks moved about their day with peace and purpose, unaffected by his insults or demands. It was as if his words evaporated into the air without leaving any impact. One evening, the traveler sat in frustration, watching the monks meditate by the river. How do they do it? He wondered aloud. How do they not react to me? He began to notice that the monk's silence wasn't passive. It was intentional. Their silence was a boundary, an invisible wall that prevented him from influencing them. They were fully present, yet unreachable. As the days turned into weeks, the traveler grew restless. He realized that his usual tactics, which had always worked on others, were useless here. His arrogance, his need for validation, and his attempts at control all fell flat against the monk's unwavering stillness. It was as though he were speaking to a mirror that reflected only his own actions back to him. The traveler could no longer bear the weight of his own ego. He approached the wise monk again, but this time, his tone was different. "I don't understand," he said. "How can you endure my presence without reacting? Everyone else I meet either fears me or tries to challenge me. But you do nothing." "Why?" The monk smiled gently and replied, "You seek to control because you believe you are separate from the world around you. But in truth, everything is connected. When we react to the negativity of others, we feed that energy and allow it to grow. By remaining still, we do not allow their energy to take root within us." The traveler looked confused. "But how do you stop yourself from feeling anger or frustration? How do you stop yourself from reacting?" The monk gestured to the flowing river. "Look at the river. It flows without effort, carrying with it the fallen leaves, the stones, and the twigs. Yet, no matter what falls into it, the river continues to flow. It does not stop to argue with the stones, nor does it cling to the leaves. It simply moves forward, unaffected. We, too, must learn to flow like the river. When you understand that the words and actions of others are not yours to carry, you can remain at peace." The traveler was silent for a long time, watching the river flow. For the first time, he began to see that the monk's silence was not a sign of weakness but of immense strength. Their silence was not an absence of speech but a presence of mind. A refusal to let external forces disturb their inner peace. In the following days, the traveler decided to stay at the monastery a little longer, though his behavior began to change. He no longer demanded attention or sought to control the monks. Instead, he observed them closely, trying to understand their way of life. One day, while walking through the forest with the monk, the traveler asked, "But what if someone tries to take advantage of your silence? What if they see it as weakness and try to harm you?" The monk paused and picked up a small stone from the ground. He held it in his hand and said, "A stone cannot be harmed by the wind, for it is grounded. It remains steady, regardless of the force that blows against it." Likewise, when we are grounded in our own truth, the actions of others cannot harm us. Narcissists, like the wind, may try to provoke a response, but if we are solid in our understanding, we remain unshaken. The traveler frowned, still unsure. But what if the narcissist continues to push? What if they don't stop? The monk smiled and looked at the stone in his hand. When a person pushes against a mountain, does the mountain move? No. Eventually, the person becomes tired and stops pushing. The mountain remains. This is the way of boundaries, strong, silent, and immovable. The more you react to someone trying to control you, the more power you give them. But when you do not engage, their power diminishes. They are left with nothing to push against. As the traveler listened, he realized that his entire life had been a struggle for control, a constant need to assert his dominance over others. Yet here, in this quiet place, among these silent monks, he had learned a new kind of power, a power that came not from force or words but from stillness and presence. The traveler looked at the monk, his arrogance now completely dissolved. How can I learn to be like the mountain? How can I set these boundaries without saying a word? The monk smiled, seeing the transformation in the traveler. It begins with knowing yourself. When you know who you are, no one else can define you. When you are comfortable in your own silence, the words of others lose their power. Practice stillness, both in speech and in thought. When you encounter someone who seeks to control you, do not resist them with words. Instead, remain still and let their energy pass through you. Like the river, continue to flow. Like the mountain, remain unmoved. Months passed. And the traveler, who had once been filled with arrogance and pride, became a humble student of the monk. He practiced meditation daily, learning to quiet his mind and observe his thoughts without attachment. He no longer sought to control others or assert his superiority. Instead, he learned the power of silence, of setting boundaries without ever saying a word. In time, the traveler left the monastery, but he carried with him the lessons he had learned. Whenever he encountered someone who sought to manipulate or control him, he would remember the monk's words and remain still, like the mountain. He no longer reacted to their provocations, and in his silence, he found strength. As he journeyed through life, the traveler became known not for his arrogance but for his wisdom and calm demeanor. People sought his counsel, and those who tried to manipulate him soon realized that their efforts were in vain. His boundaries were clear, yet they were never spoken. He had learned the art of setting boundaries with narcissists without saying a word, and so, the traveler found peace, not by controlling the world around him, but by mastering the world within him. As Gautama Buddha taught, in the end, these things matter most. How well did you love? How fully did you live? How deeply did you let go? The traveler had learned to let go, to live fully in the present moment, and to love without attachment. And in doing so, he found the greatest power of all, the power of peace. Thus ends the story of how one man learned to set boundaries without words, using the teachings of Zen and the wisdom of silence. Through stillness, presence, and understanding. Thanks for watching. Hope enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Just click the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you'd like to see next. See you in the next video. Why do certain people enter our lives? This question has puzzled minds for centuries, and the answers seem elusive. However, in the stillness of Zen teachings, we find a profound understanding. It is said that nothing happens by coincidence, and in the grand tapestry of existence, every thread, every individual we encounter, serves a purpose. Gautama Buddha, in his wisdom, once said, "Everything that has a beginning has an end. Make peace with that and all will be well." This saying speaks not only of impermanence but also of the interconnectedness of events and beings. Nothing, not even the smallest encounter, is random. The stranger at the gate. One day, a young man who had been deeply troubled by life's uncertainties approached a revered Zen master. The man's life was riddled with confusion and doubt, as he couldn't comprehend why certain people entered his life only to leave him in sorrow, while others brought joy and wisdom. Feeling the weight of these interactions, he sought answers from the master. As the young man knelt before the master in the tranquil courtyard, the air around him was silent. The Zen master, known for his calm demeanor, gazed into the distance. After a long pause, he spoke softly, "People do not come into our lives by chance." The young man, intrigued yet skeptical, leaned forward. "But how can that be? Many people come and go without meaning. They appear in our lives and disappear as if they were never there." The master smiled. "Let me tell you a story, the encounter with the traveler. There once was a monk who lived in a peaceful monastery surrounded by nature's beauty. He spent his days in deep meditation, seeking wisdom and understanding. One day, while sitting by the riverbank, absorbed in the sounds of flowing water, a weary traveler approached him. The traveler, burdened by a heavy load on his back, looked exhausted. Without a word, he sat beside the monk, breathing deeply, as if finding solace in the monk's silent presence. The monk, without asking, sensed the traveler's need and invited him to share a meal. As they sat together in silence, the traveler slowly unburdened himself. He shared stories of distant lands, of struggles and victories, of love lost and found, and the pain of searching for purpose. The monk listened, never interrupting. After the meal, the traveler, feeling lighter, thanked the monk and prepared to leave. "I do not know why I stopped here, but I feel something has changed in me," he said. The monk smiled and replied, "You were meant to stop here, as I was meant to meet you. Our paths crossing was no accident." The threads of fate. The young man interrupted the master's story, his brow furrowed. "But what does that mean? How could their meeting have been destined?" The traveler didn't know the monk, and the monk didn't seek the traveler. The Zen master nodded, understanding the confusion. "In the grand scheme of life, each person we meet is like a thread in a vast web. Some threads are short, barely touching ours, while others intertwine deeply. But none of these connections are random. The monk and the traveler were meant to meet because they needed something from each other. The traveler needed peace, and the monk needed the reminder of the interconnectedness of life." The young man, still uncertain, asked, "But what if someone brings pain or suffering into our lives? Why would they come into our lives if not by chance?" The master closed his eyes, drawing a deep breath before continuing the story. The lesson of the adversary. Many years after his encounter with the traveler, the monk found himself facing a much different visitor. This time, it was not a weary traveler but a bitter and angry man. This man, enraged by life's injustices, stormed into the monastery one evening, demanding answers for the pain he had endured. He accused the monks of hiding behind their walls of serenity while the world suffered. The monk, hearing the man's angry shouts, calmly approached him. "What is it you seek?" he asked. The angry man spat on the ground and shouted, "I seek justice. I seek an explanation for my suffering. Why have I been cursed with a life of pain while others live in peace?" The monk did not react to the man's anger. Instead, he invited him inside, offering him tea. At first, the man refused, his rage bubbling over. But eventually, curiosity got the better of him, and he sat down. As they drank their tea in silence, the man's anger began to fade. The stillness of the monastery, the calm presence of the monk, and the simple act of sharing tea began to shift something within him. After a long silence, the man finally spoke. I have carried this anger for so long. Everywhere I go, I meet people who hurt me, who betray me. Why do they come into my life? What lesson could there be in so much pain? The monk looked into the man's eyes and said, pain is also a teacher. Those who bring suffering into our lives are not there by chance. They come to show us something about ourselves, to help us grow in ways that comfort cannot. The mirror of suffering, the young man, listening intently to the master's story, leaned back, processing the words. Are you saying that even those who hurt us are meant to be part of our lives? The master nodded. Yes. Everyone we encounter is a reflection of some part of ourselves. The angry man who came to the monk was blinded by his own suffering. He couldn't see that the people who hurt him were, in fact, holding up a mirror, showing him the anger and bitterness he carried within. Only when he faced this truth could he begin to heal. The young man thought of the people in his own life who had caused him pain. He realized that perhaps they, too, had come into his life for a reason, to teach him something about himself. Even if the lesson was painful, but what about those who bring joy into our lives? He asked. Are they also meant to be there for a reason? The master smiled warmly. Of course. The people who bring light into our lives remind us of the beauty of connection. They are there to help us remember the joy of living, to show us that we are not alone on this journey. The return of the traveler. Years after his first meeting with the weary traveler, the monk found himself thinking of him often. The traveler had left a lasting impression, and the monk wondered if their paths would cross again. One day, as the monk meditated by the riverbank, he heard footsteps approaching. He opened his eyes and saw the traveler. Now older, standing before him. The burden he had once carried was gone, replaced by a serene expression. The traveler smiled and bowed. I have returned, my friend. I do not know why, but something called me back here. The monk smiled and gestured for the traveler to sit beside him. Our meeting all those years ago was not by chance, and neither is your return. There is something you still seek. The traveler nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. I have found peace in my journeys, but there is one question that remains unanswered. Why did I feel so drawn to you? Why did I stop here that day? The monk looked at the traveler and said, because your soul knew what you needed. Even if your mind did not. Our lives are guided by forces we cannot always see, but that does not mean they are random. You came into my life to remind me of the importance of connection, and I came into yours to help you find peace. We were both teachers to one another, as are all the people we meet. The Dance of Souls. The young man, now deeply moved by the master's story, asked one final question. So, are we all connected? Is every person we meet part of a larger design? The master nodded. Yes. We are all part of the same dance of existence. Every encounter, every relationship, is a step in that dance. Some steps are graceful, bringing us joy, while others are difficult, bringing us pain. But each step is necessary. Each person we meet is a part of our growth. Nothing is by chance. The young man felt a deep sense of peace wash over him. He realized that the people in his life, the ones who had brought him joy, the ones who had caused him pain, and even the ones who had left him confused, were all part of a greater journey. They had come into his life to teach him, to guide him, and to help him grow. As he bowed before the master and prepared to leave, the master offered him one final piece of wisdom. Remember, the people who enter your life are not random. They are there to help you on your path, to reflect back to you the lessons you need to learn. Whether they bring joy or pain, they are part of your journey. Embrace each encounter with gratitude, for they are all teachers in disguise. As the young man walked away from the monastery, he felt a sense of clarity he had never known before. He understood now that the people who had come into his life, whether for a brief moment or for many years, were all there for a reason. Some had brought him joy, others had brought him pain, but each had taught him something valuable. The encounters that once seemed random now felt purposeful. He realized that life, in its infinite wisdom, was always guiding him, bringing him the people he needed at the right time. Each person was a reflection, a teacher, guiding him on his path of growth and self-discovery. With this newfound wisdom, the young man embraced every encounter with gratitude, knowing that nothing in life was by chance. Every soul that crossed his path was part of the grand design, meant to help him evolve into the person he was destined to become. In the end, he understood that the people who come into our lives, whether bringing joy or pain, are never random, they are always there for a reason. Thanks for watching. Hope enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Just click the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you'd like to see next. See you in the next video. Have you ever wondered how such a small change could bring about a profound transformation in life? Can the tiniest of actions ripple through our existence and alter it in ways we never imagined? Gautama Buddha once said, "A jug fills drop by drop." This timeless wisdom reveals that the small things we do each day have the potential to shape the vast landscape of our life. But how do these seemingly insignificant habits hold the power to change us? Let us embark on a story that illustrates how 5 simple yet powerful habits can transform life forever. These habits, rooted in Zen and Buddhist teachings, may seem modest, but their effects are life-altering. 1. The habit of daily silence, finding peace in stillness. The first habit is one that seems ordinary yet holds immense power: silence. Silence is not merely the absence of words but the presence of inner peace. Many years ago, there was a man who lived his life surrounded by noise from work, from people, and from his own restless thoughts. He believed that to be busy was to be successful, and that quietness was a sign of idleness. One day, he met a wise monk who radiated an aura of calmness and peace. The man asked the monk, "How is it that you are so at peace, while I am consumed by noise and stress?" The monk smiled and replied, "Have you ever sat in silence with yourself, truly listening to your own heart, curious but skeptical?" The man took the monk's advice and began practicing a few moments of silence each morning. At first, he found it uncomfortable. His mind would wander, and the silence felt almost deafening. But over time, the silence became a source of peace. In that silence, he began to understand his thoughts, his emotions, and the inner workings of his mind. He realized that silence was not a void, it was a space where clarity arose. His once restless mind became calm, and the answers to the questions he had been chasing all his life began to surface. He found that in stillness, he could hear his true self speak. This small daily habit of embracing silence transformed his chaotic existence into one of serenity and wisdom. The Buddha teaches that silence is a powerful teacher. It allows us to connect with the present moment and understand the impermanence of things. Through the simple act of being silent, we learn to quiet the endless chatter in our minds and find peace within. 2. The habit of gratitude, cultivating joy through appreciation. The second habit is gratitude. It is easy to overlook the things we have and focus on what we lack, but the practice of gratitude can shift our entire perspective on life. A woman, frustrated with the hardships she faced, felt that her life was full of struggle and disappointment. She constantly compared herself to others, feeling that her life lacked the abundance she saw around her. One day, while walking through a garden, she met an elderly monk who was joyfully admiring a simple flower. Intrigued by his apparent contentment, she asked, "How can you find joy in something so small?" The monk replied, "When you begin to appreciate the small things in life, you realize that they are not small at all. This flower, this moment, is as vast as the universe. It is a gift, and I am grateful for it." The woman pondered these words and decided to adopt the habit of gratitude. Every morning and evening, she made a point to reflect on 3 things she was grateful for, whether it was the warmth of the sun on her face, the sound of birds singing, or the kindness of a stranger. As she continued this practice, her life began to change. She noticed that her heart felt lighter, and her mind no longer lingered on what she lacked. Instead, she began to see abundance everywhere, in the relationships she had, in the beauty of nature, and in the simple pleasures of life. Gratitude opened her eyes to the richness of her own existence. It brought her joy, even amidst the challenges. Buddha once said, "Let us rise up and be thankful, for if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little." Gratitude is not merely a feeling, it is a way of life. By practicing gratitude, we learn to focus on the present moment and the blessings that surround us, no matter how small they may seem. 3. The habit of mindful breathing, mastering the present moment. The third habit that can change your life is mindful breathing. Breathing is something we all do unconsciously, but when we bring awareness to it, it becomes a powerful tool for transformation. There was once a young man who was constantly anxious. His mind was always racing, worrying about the future or regretting the past. He found it difficult to enjoy life because his thoughts never allowed him to be fully present. He sought the help of a Zen master, who told him, "The key to mastering your mind is to master your breath. When your mind wanders, return to your breath, for it is the anchor to the present moment." Skeptical but desperate for relief, the young man began practicing mindful breathing. He would sit quietly for a few minutes each day, focusing on his breath as it entered and left his body. At first, his mind resisted, but he persisted. Gradually, he noticed something remarkable. When he focused on his breath, his anxious thoughts faded away. The more he practiced, the more he realized that his breath was his constant companion, always available to bring him back to the present moment. Mindful breathing became his refuge. Whenever he felt overwhelmed by life, he would simply return to his breath, and in doing so, he found peace. His anxiety diminished, and he began to live more fully in each moment. The Buddha teaches that the breath is the bridge between the body and the mind. By practicing mindful breathing, we can bring our awareness to the present moment and free ourselves from the distractions of the past and future. This simple habit can bring profound calmness and clarity to our lives. 4. The habit of letting go, embracing impermanence. The fourth habit is learning to let go. In life, we often hold on to things, whether it's possessions, relationships, or past experiences, out of fear of losing them. But in doing so, we cause ourselves unnecessary suffering. There was once a man who had experienced many losses in his life. He clung tightly to his memories and possessions, afraid that letting go would mean losing a part of himself. He carried the weight of his past with him everywhere he went. And it weighed him down like a heavy burden. One day, he encountered a monk who noticed his sorrow and said, "To live is to change, and to change is to let go." "The tighter you hold on, the more you suffer," the man asked. "But how can I let go of the things that mean so much to me?" The monk replied, "The things you hold on to are like sand in your hand. The tighter you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. But if you open your hand and let it rest, the sand remains with you." Letting go does not mean losing, it means accepting the flow of life. The man began to practice the art of letting go. He started with small things, decluttering his home, releasing grudges, and forgiving himself for past mistakes. Each time he let go, he felt lighter, freer. He realized that life is constantly changing and that holding on to the past only prevents him from embracing the present. The Buddha teaches that attachment is the root of suffering. By practicing the habit of letting go, we free ourselves from the chains of attachment and learn to flow with the impermanence of life. This habit allows us to live with a sense of freedom and openness, no longer weighed down by the past. The fifth and final habit is kindness. It is easy to underestimate the power of a kind word or a compassionate action, but kindness has the potential to transform not only our lives but the lives of those around us. There was once a man who lived a life of ambition and self-interest. He believed that success was achieved by focusing solely on oneself and one's own goals. However, despite his success, he felt a deep sense of emptiness. One day, while walking through the market, he saw a monk helping an elderly woman carry her heavy basket. The monk's actions were small, but the smile on the woman's face was radiant. Intrigued by the monk's simple act of kindness, the man asked him, "Why do you go out of your way to help others when it brings you no reward?" The monk smiled and replied, "Kindness is its own reward. When you practice kindness, you are planting seeds of compassion in the world. These seeds grow, and they nourish not only others but also yourself. The more kindness you give, the more you receive." Inspired, the man began to practice small acts of kindness each day. He started with simple gestures, smiling at strangers, offering help to those in need, and speaking kindly to others. Over time, he noticed that his relationships improved, his heart felt fuller, and his sense of purpose deepened. The more kindness he gave, the more connected he felt to the world around him. The Buddha teaches that kindness is the path to true happiness. By practicing kindness, we create a ripple effect of positivity in the world. This small habit not only changes our own lives but also the lives of those we touch. These 5 small habits, daily silence, gratitude, mindful breathing, letting go, and kindness, may seem simple, but they hold the power to transform your life forever. Just as Buddha's wisdom teaches, small, mindful actions accumulate over time, shaping the essence of who we are. Like drops of water filling a jug, these habits gradually change the way we perceive and interact with the world. By embracing them, we cultivate inner peace, joy, clarity, freedom, and compassion, allowing us to live a life of profound fulfillment and meaning. Thanks for watching. Hope enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Just click the subscribe button below and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, feel free to leave a comment and let me know what you'd like to see next. See you in the next video.